The year was 1999. It was a time when the world was on the brink of a new millennium, filled with hopes, dreams, and the spirit of adventure. The allure of the unknown and the thrill of conquering the highest peaks captivated many hearts. Dufont and his team stood at the foot of Mount Everest. The mountain, majestic and imposing, loomed above them, its peak piercing the sky. The base camp buzzed with activity, a melting pot of climbers from around the world, each with their own story, their own reason for being there. They were a determined group, driven by a shared dream. Each member of the team brought their own unique skills and experiences, but they were united by a common goal: to reach the summit of the world's highest mountain. The camaraderie among them was palpable, a bond forged through countless hours of training and preparation. The summit called to them. It was more than just a physical challenge. It was a test of their spirit, their resilience, and their determination. The peak represented the pinnacle of human achievement, a place where only the bravest dared to tread. They were prepared to answer its call. Months of rigorous training had honed their bodies and sharpened their minds. They had studied every route, every potential obstacle, and had meticulously planned their ascent. Their gear was checked and rechecked, every detail accounted for. The team had trained for months. Their bodies hardened, their minds focused. They had faced harsh conditions, pushing themselves to their limits in preparation for the ultimate challenge. Every step, every climb, every moment of struggle had brought them closer to this point. They carried with them the hopes of families and friends. The support and encouragement from their loved ones had been a constant source of strength. Messages of love and pride echoed in their minds, reminding them of the people who believed in them and were cheering them on from afar. They also carried the weight of their own ambitions. Each climber had their own personal reasons for undertaking this monumental task. For some, it was a lifelong dream. For others, it was a quest for self-discovery or a desire to push the boundaries of what they thought possible. Excitement filled the air as they set off from base camp. The journey ahead was daunting, but the thrill of the adventure and the promise of the summit spurred them on. Every step taken was a step closer to their dream, a step closer to standing on top of the world. Each step took them closer to their goal. The path was treacherous, the air thin and cold, but their determination was unwavering. They moved as one, a team united in purpose, each climber drawing strength from the others. They were ready to face whatever Everest threw at them. This was their time. The mountain would test them, challenge them, but they were prepared. They had come too far to turn back now. The summit awaited, and they were ready to answer its call. The climb was arduous, a true test of human endurance and spirit. Each step forward was a battle against the elements, a struggle to overcome the sheer force of nature. The climbers faced biting winds and freezing temperatures, their bodies pushed to the limits. Rest was a luxury, and every pause was a moment to gather strength for the next grueling stretch. They battled treacherous icefalls and steep ridges, each obstacle more daunting than the last. The ice was unforgiving, and one wrong move could spell disaster. The air thinned with every upward step, making each breath a laborious task. Still, they pressed on, driven by an unyielding determination. Days turned into weeks, and the mountain tested their resolve at every turn. The team made steady progress, inching closer to their goal. They established camps along the way, each one a small victory in the grand scheme of their journey. They celebrated small victories along the way, each milestone a testament to their perseverance. High fives and cheers echoed through the thin air, a brief respite from the relentless climb. Reaching each new camp brought relief and renewed hope. They were getting closer, and the summit seemed within reach. The sight of their tents against the stark landscape was a beacon of progress. The summit was within reach, a tantalizing goal that spurred them onward. They could see it in the distance, a majestic peak that called to them, promising glory and achievement. Yet, with each victory came a sense of trepidation. Everest was unpredictable, and the mountain had a way of reminding them of its power. The weather could change in an instant, turning their triumph into a struggle for survival. The mountain could turn on a dime. The team knew this, and they remained vigilant. They braced against strong winds and prepared for the worst, knowing that their journey was far from over. They couldn't let their guard down, not for a moment. Every step was a calculated risk, and their survival depended on their ability to stay focused and alert. The climb was a delicate balance of triumph and trepidation, a journey that tested their limits and pushed them to new heights. Then, disaster struck. At 26,000 feet just below Camp 4, Dufont's oxygen tank began to leak. Panic surged through him. He knew the dangers of oxygen deprivation at that altitude. It was a life-or-death situation. He checked his gauge. It was dropping rapidly. He fumbled with the regulator, his heart pounding, his mind raced. He needed to fix it, and fast. But the leak wouldn't stop. His strength began to fade. His vision blurred. He knew he was in serious trouble. He had to make a decision. The Sherpa guide, a seasoned veteran of Everest, assessed the situation. His eyes scanned the horizon, taking in the ominous clouds gathering in the distance. The wind had picked up, and the temperature was dropping rapidly. He knew these signs all too well. A storm was brewing, and it was coming fast. He spoke with a calm that belied the urgency of the situation. "We must descend," he said, his voice steady but firm. "The weather is turning, and it will not be forgiving." His calm demeanor was a stark contrast to the growing tension among the climbers. "We must descend," he said. "Every minute counts," Dufont argued. "We've come so far," Dufont protested, his voice tinged with desperation. "We can't turn back now. We're so close to the summit." The Sherpa's eyes softened with understanding, but his resolve did not waver. He didn't want to give up. The summit was within reach, and the thought of abandoning the climb was unbearable. He had trained for years, sacrificed so much, and now, just a few hundred meters from his goal, he was being told to turn back. He had come so far. The dream of standing on the roof of the world had driven him through countless hardships. The physical and mental toll of the climb had been immense, but the thought of reaching the summit had kept him going. He pleaded with the Sherpa for another option. "Isn't there any other way?" he asked, his voice breaking. "Can't we wait out the storm? Maybe it will pass quickly." The Sherpa shook his head, his expression grave. "The mountain decides," he said. "We must respect its power." But deep down he knew the truth. The mountain was unforgiving, and to ignore its warnings was to court disaster. The Sherpa's experience and wisdom were undeniable, and Dufont knew that to disregard his advice would be reckless. The Sherpa's words echoed in his ears. "The mountain will always be there." "Your life is more important," the Sherpa continued. "You can always try again, but only if you survive today." The gravity of the situation was sinking in, and Dufont felt a heavy weight on his shoulders. "Your life is more important." The Sherpa's words were a stark reminder of the dangers they faced. The mountain had claimed many lives, and it would claim many more if they were not careful. The decision to turn back was not a sign of weakness, but of wisdom and respect for the forces of nature. Dufont knew he was right. The realization hit him hard, but it was undeniable. The summit would have to wait. His life and the lives of his fellow climbers were more important than any achievement. With a heavy heart, he agreed. "All right," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "We'll turn back." The decision was made, and the weight of it settled heavily on his shoulders. The dream of the summit would have to wait for another day. They had to turn back. The descent was filled with a mix of relief and disappointment. The mountain would always be there, but for now, their safety was the priority. As they made their way down, Dufont couldn't help but look back at the peak, a silent promise in his heart that he would return. The descent was a blur. The mountain unleashed its fury. A ferocious storm rolled in, blanketing everything in white. The wind howled like a banshee. Visibility dropped to mere feet. Exhausted and demoralized, Dufont fought to stay on his feet. Every step was a battle against the elements. He clung to the rope, his lifeline. He wouldn't let go. He thought of his family. Their faces fueled his determination. He had to make it back to them. He had to survive. Section 6. Finding Solace, a prayer at base camp. Reaching base camp was a victory in itself. Dufont collapsed in his tent, his body spent. He had never felt so defeated, yet so incredibly alive. The team gathered. They offered a prayer of thanks for their safe return. It was a somber moment. They mourned the loss of their dream, but they also found solace in their shared experience. They had faced death and lived to tell the tale. They had been tested and found wanting, but they had survived. Section 7. Everest's Unforgiving Nature, Lessons Learned. Dufont's failed attempt on Everest was a harsh lesson. It taught him the brutal reality of the mountain. Everest didn't care for dreams or ambitions. It was a force of nature, unforgiving and indifferent. He learned that sometimes retreat is the bravest option. He realized that there is no shame in turning back. Sometimes survival is the greatest victory of all. The experience changed him. It stripped him bare and forced him to confront his own mortality. Section 8, a humbling experience. Respect for the mountain. Dufont emerged from the experience humbled and filled with a profound respect for Everest. He understood the delicate balance between ambition and self-preservation. He carried the lessons he learned on Everest with him. They became a part of him, shaping his outlook on life. He knew he would never forget his encounter with the mountain. He understood that Everest was more than just a mountain. It was a symbol of human aspiration and the limits of human endurance. Section 9. A word of caution to future climbers of Everest. To those who dare to dream of conquering Everest, remember Dufont's story. Heed its warning. The mountain is a formidable adversary. It demands respect and exacts a heavy toll. Go, if you must, but go prepared. Train your body and mind, be ready to face the unknown, and most importantly, be prepared to turn back. For on Everest, survival is the ultimate triumph.